Welcome to the Impact Business Show. I'm your host, Annalise Warren, a marketing agency CEO, business strategist, digital marketing mentor, wife, and mama of 4 little ones. Stay tuned for conversations with successful, purpose-driven business leaders, as well as practical marketing strategies that you can action right away. We are here to help you master your marketing, build your business, and change the world. So let's get into it. Welcome back to another episode. This episode of the Impact Business Show is brought to you by the Impact Business Network. Now, this is a rerun of a recording that we ran of a training session that we ran inside the Impact Business Network with Dr. Deborah Fryer. Now, it is an incredible interview. Deborah is so wise, and she is a holistic money mindset coach, which you are going to learn all about very soon. And for our Impact Business Network paid members, they were able to then have the opportunity to ask Dr. Deborah questions after the interview. So that part has not been recorded, but this wide-ranging interview with Dr. Deborah has. And so with that, I will leave you with the episode. Please enjoy. Now, I'm just going to quickly read a little bit of Deborah's bio, and you will quickly see as she begins to speak about, we're going to talk about money mindset, money blocks. Deborah's wisdom goes far and wide and deep. So I know that you are going to gain so much from this conversation. So really lean in, allow yourself to be open. Maybe these are concepts you haven't kind of heard before. Maybe this is a really new perspective. And I hope that you find it really valuable. So just a little bit about Deborah, the official version. Deborah is a spiritual business coach, money mindset mentor, and founder of the Academy of Money holistic brain training system that incorporates ancient wisdom and modern neuroscience. Now, she is also an award-winning documentary filmmaker and the author of Best Brain Hacks, Turn on Your Tap, Best Year Ever, and lots of other really incredible things that we will put in the show notes. But I want to turn it over to Deborah. Thank you so much for joining me.
It's my pleasure.
So, Deborah, I was talking to you before we hit record. Talk to me about maybe how did you get here? Could we quickly just wind back the clock a little bit? How did you begin? Why are you teaching people about money mindset? How did you land there?
Well, I really struggled with money. I was in such a toxic relationship with money. And I know toxic relationship can feel very trite, but I was in a relationship with money similar to a relationship that people sometimes find themselves in with a beloved when it doesn't work out. And in fact, this is one of the processes that I use with people to help them see what their relationship with money is revealing to themselves. So the relationship that I was in with money was I wanted nothing to do with it. I thought money was disgusting. I thought it was manipulative. I thought only mean, amoral people who trash the environment had money. I thought it was off limits to me because I didn't want to be one of those people. I had so much resentment towards money and people who were doing bad things with money that it was, really anathema to me. I didn't want anything to do with it. And it wasn't until I began to do the deeper work, the subconscious work, the shadow work, and I began to discover there's this thing called a money story. I didn't even know that term. And there's this thing called a mind-body-money connection. I didn't know what that was. I began to understand that there are literally clues that your subconscious is leaving all over the place. And when you begin to understand those clues, you can begin to retrace the steps of how you got to where you are in your relationship with not only money, but all that money represents. Because money is energy that represents the deeper currents of how do you value you? How do you qualify and quantify your worth? Now, women have the conditioning, sadly, and this affects men also, but especially women, we have been conditioned to believe that we are worth less than men. And we see it everywhere. We see it in less maternity leave, where women don't get very much maternity leave, and have to make a choice, and often that affects their income for 1, 2, 3, 10 years, depending on how long they're away from the workplace. We see it in still grossly unfair ways that women are remunerated for doing the same work as men. And Asian women are paid the most, and then white women, and then African American women, and then Latina women, and on it goes. And so we've been conditioned to believe that we're worth less. And then we internalize it and we walk around feeling worthless. And I'm really on a mission to disrupt that way of thinking and to help women remember their worth, remember their value, remember their contributions, rather than coming from a one down position of disqualifying themselves, or not even starting because they're afraid that they're not going to be good enough. This conditioning is so deep that we're worth less, that we walk around already believing we're not good enough because of the conditioning. And all of that is BS. And so I can already feel like my passion beginning to come out, but it's such an important conversation that most people are afraid to have because, oh my gosh, people aren't going to like me. I'm going to be too loud. I'm too much, like I can't have that much. Huge thing for me was, I travel a lot to developing countries, and two of my favorite countries are India and Peru, where I've spent quite a lot of time. And there are people living in what we on this side of the pond call poverty, and they're incredibly happy and incredibly loving. And I was really curious about all of this. Like, why am I so messed up around money? Why do I feel so aligned with people who are marginalized? Why do I feel so aligned with environments that are marginalized and animals and species that are marginalized? And of course, it was because there was something going on in my consciousness around self-marginalization, which comes both from each one of us has a personal story, and it comes from our ancestral story, and it comes from our collective conditioning, where we have been conditioned to believe that we are worth less, and therefore we disqualify ourselves automatically. So that was kind of a long-winded way of saying, like, how did I become interested? I became interested because it really hurt. For me, it really hurt. It really hurt that I have Ivy League degrees and I couldn't figure out how to make consistent income, that I was way overextended on a credit card to like $100,000 in debt, and I was moving it around like a big shell game on 7 different cards. And I felt like such a fraud because here I am, a really bright person, and I didn't understand money. So, my own seeking of how can I be at peace with this thing that touches everything I do, it just turned into something that I'm now really passionate about.
Thank you so much for sharing. I love listening to your perspective, and I love that it flows around and we move around. So don't apologize for any long-windedness. I love it. So let's dive into money story. What is that? How do we know what ours is?
Yeah. So what's your money story? So the way I think of it when I say, what is your money story, is number one, at the level that you're conscious of, what's the story that you hear yourself saying around money? What are the words you hear yourself saying when you talk about money? Do you have a habit of saying, I can't afford that, or I don't have time, or somebody gives you a compliment, they say, you look great today, and you say, oh no, I didn't. I don't look that great. I didn't have time to put on makeup today, or you somehow deflect, right? Or you say, oh, I'm really tired, right? You operate unconsciously from a place of lack. And this is something that really flies under the radar until we're aware of it. The first time I became aware of this, I was working with Lynn Twist, who's the author of The Soul of Money. And she's just said something like, how many of you wake up, hit the alarm clock, and the first thought you have is, I didn't get enough sleep? And I was like, oh yeah, that's me. In those days, like, that was me. I didn't prioritize my sleep. I didn't prioritize my health. I didn't prioritize my self-care. I didn't prioritize myself at all. So when she said that, I was like, well, that's true. I do start my day in lack. And I immediately began to shift that by putting some practices in place, namely the practice of gratitude, so I can start my day with what I already have and what I'm overflowing with. But back to what is your money story? So you recognize, what are the things that you talk about? What are the words that you say? Do you operate from, here's what I don't want, here's what's not working? Do you always look for what's wrong? Do you always disqualify yourself? Do you pretend like, I'll do it when I'm ready, I'll do it when I have the money? These are some ways that we can see that we're actually holding at arm's length the very thing we want, rather than going right to it and saying, yes, please, thank you. We're like, no, 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 not right now. And if we're not aware that we're doing it, we don't understand why money is not jumping up and down every time it sees us. If we're like, no, 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 not right now. I'll do that later. I'll do that after fill in the blank. I'll do that after my kids go to college. I'll do that after, we've come up with the money that we need for da-da-da. And you cannot treat money like it's an afterthought and want it to show up immediately. You can't. And you can't treat other people like an afterthought and expect them to show up immediately. So this is what I mean about, like, if you're in a relationship and you see that these are some ways that you habitually are in relationship, you wait for them to give you permission and then you'll do the thing. I mean, this is something that I hear all the time from my clients, where they'll say, or my potential clients, and you who are working with Annalise right now, you're all marketing people. And so you will have conversations with potential clients, with prospects, who will say, I need to have a conversation with my husband. Usually it looks like that. Usually it's, I have to ask my husband. Occasionally it's, I need to check it out with my wife, but more often it's the husband who is the breadwinner and the woman needs to ask permission. So if that's what your come from is, you're waiting for permission, you've unconsciously given your power to somebody else to make a business decision, and it's your business. So this is another way that you can see if you've, given your power to money or not. Another way that we see that we give our power to money is we say, I really want this thing and I can't afford it, and I'm not going to invest in the thing I know I need until I have the money. And that's so backwards thinking, because you investing in the thing you need is going to help you make more money. You investing in Annalise and team is going to help you make more money, because they're going to be able to expand your reach. You've effectively doubled or tripled your reach when you invest in team, who can now be 2 or 3 of you instead of just 1 of you. So this is totally backwards thinking, where we operate from a place of scarcity, thinking, I don't have enough, I can't afford to do the thing, when the higher truth is, you can't afford not to do the thing. So that's one way that you can look at your money stories. What are the words that you hear yourself saying, whether out loud or in the privacy of your own head? The second way that you know that you have some healing around money is, every time you think about money, what do you feel in your body? And I do this exercise with my clients, where I'll ask them, what's your income right now? Write it down. And how many hours a week are you working for that? Okay. And how does that income feel to you? And they'll begin to feel their stomach start to tie in a knot. They'll start to hear words like, I should be making more, or I'm working my ass off and I'm making great money, but I'm working so hard and I never get to see my kids. Or I'm making a whole bunch of money and I'm like making double what my husband is making, and it's really threatening our marriage. So I think I don't want to make that much money. Like, you're immediately going to start feeling stuff in your body. And then we can dial it up a little bit. Double your income. What would happen if you doubled your income? How many hours do you want to work for that? What normally happens when I ask this question, people will say, oh yeah, I want to double my income. Okay. How many hours do you want to work for that? And they go straight to doubling the number of hours they want to work. Well, that's not doubling your income. That's just working twice as hard for the same amount of money, right? So, and then you'll feel in your body, your stomach ties itself in a knot. I feel like headache. I'm tingling. It's hard to breathe. Like, the body immediately responds to your thoughts. So that's another way that you will notice that you have something going on with money. You start to feel nervous around having an enrollment conversation. You feel nervous about collecting late payments. You don't want to have the conversation with your spouse. These are some clues, right? Like whatever you resist persists. And the reason that you resist it is because it feels uncomfortable. So start noticing what situations, what words specifically create discomfort for you. And I guarantee you, there's something in your conditioning, there's something in your nervous system where you're afraid. And that's what our money story is. Mostly for women, we're afraid of being too powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big concept that not a lot of people are talking about, I think.
Mm. When you think about doubling your income, do you feel anything in your body?
I feel, yeah, I feel
If that's a goal for you.
like expanding, like
Mhm.
my chest is opening and expanding. That's what I feel.
So if that's the and if that's the case, that's also great information, right? We want to notice, where do we feel expansion and where do we feel contraction? And they go hand in hand, right? If some part of you is expanding, another part of you is contracting. And the easiest way for you to think about this is you can't inhale and exhale at the same time, right? When you're making a bicep, your bicep is it's contracting, and your tricep is expanding, is lengthening. And every system in our body works in this way, through contraction and through expansion and contraction. Every system works like that. Every cell works like that. So it's completely normal that you will have that experience as you are growing your business. But what is different about the brain from the rest of your body, the rest of the body just grows. It doesn't apologize. Your hair just keeps growing. Your fingernails just keep growing, right? You skin your leg and it heals itself. It just keeps on making more of itself. And we're all designed to reproduce ourselves and to make more of ourselves, right? Hair cells become hair cells and skin cells become skin cells. It's just automatic. We don't question it. We don't try to stop it. You couldn't stop your hair from growing or your nails from growing unless you deliberately really messed up your diet, right? To have some adverse effect. But the nature of you biologically is to grow. And the nature of every cell of you is to grow. But we get a little tripped up when it comes to the conscious and the subconscious, because your conscious mind is only aware of what it can see as already having been created. Like my conscious mind can see this glass of water. I can see it, I can feel it, I can taste it, right? I can have a relationship with it because it's already been created. But the book I haven't written yet, that exists in my imagination. It's not a physical book yet, right? So if I have in my consciousness, I'm going to write a book, but I haven't written the book yet, I don't know what it feels like yet to have completed the book because I haven't done the work. The same is true with your money. If you're hovering around, let's say 80 or 90,000 and you want to break 100, and you keep bumping up against that ceiling, you don't know what it feels like to break through six figures yet because you haven't done it yet. So your conscious mind can only refer to ever what it has already experienced. That's what your conscious mind does, is it has an experience and then it files it in its memory banks. So your conscious mind, while it's trying to break through six figures, is rummaging through the file cabinet of 80K, 90K, 80K, 90K, 80K, 90K, but it can't find any evidence of you ever having done 100K. So it's totally freaking out when you say, I'm breaking six figures this year or this month or this week. And I'm doing it again in another week or another month, right? Your conscious mind is like, what, are you crazy? Because it doesn't have the experience. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means it hasn't done it yet. And that's where your money story comes in, because your conscious mind goes down into the memory banks, which live in your subconscious, and it says, I'm not a six-figure earner. I'm not a multiple six-figure earner. I'm not a seven-figure earner. And because your identity is wrapped up in the past, you're going to have to create a new identity to be a six-figure earner yearly or monthly or weekly, whatever your pleasure.
So how do you teach your clients to do that, or begin to step towards creating that new identity?
Well, the first step is you decide. And my understanding of this process is that we've all been taught backwards. We've been taught what I feel is a real disservice to all of us as creators. Because the way we've been taught to set and achieve a goal is you set the goal and then you just go and you take little steps toward the goal. And that really does not work if your identity cannot conceive of you ever hitting the goal. So let's say you're on track to become a seven-figure earner. You've got a six-figure business. You've had a couple of years of being at multi-six figures. You're on your way to seven. If subconsciously you don't see yourself as a seven-figure earner for whatever reason, and they're subconscious, so you're not going to know what they are until you start doing this work. But I'll tell you what some of those reasons are, because I do the exploration with my clients. Some of the reasons are you think it's going to take a lot of work and you don't want to sacrifice your time. You actually don't want to do it that much. You think you want to do it, but you actually don't want to do it. Another thing is you've got some stereotypes about rich people. You got some bias going on unconsciously that people who are that rich are greedy, they're selfish, they're arrogant, they have big egos, they're jerks, whatever it is. You don't want to be one of them. And so you're unconsciously going to hold back. Another one that I see all the time with women is, I don't want to out earn my husband because it's going to threaten our marriage. And that's an interesting one. Are you willing to sacrifice your dream? Do you really believe that you're married to someone who doesn't love you so much that they want you to survive? Like, it's a communication issue. I think if you're really worried that you're going to destroy your marriage, money is not the thing that's going to destroy your marriage. Money is a tool. Money is a mirror that we project our stuff on. So it's an interesting conversation when people say, oh, I don't want to do that because, and they say, something that hasn't happened yet in the future, right? They're worrying about something that hasn't happened yet. Well, that's a pretty good way to create the thing that you don't want to have happen. It's a pretty good way to make the thing happen that you don't want to have happen by putting your energy in the thing that you don't want to have happen, because where your energy flows, your attention goes. And just like if you water a seed, it will grow. If your attention is always on, I'm going to ruin my marriage, you're unconsciously watering that seed. We got to interrupt the pattern. So, and at the highest level, I would say what I help my clients to explore, to reorient around, is that it's not what they're thinking, but it's how they're thinking about what they're thinking. It's the context they're putting around it. And there are so many ways that we can access the subconscious. So the three main ways that I shared already is, what are the words that you habitually say? Because our words create our reality. Napoleon Hill says thoughts create things. What we habitually think about is what we create. So I help my clients peel the onion of, what are they actually thinking about? And it's never about money. What it is about is, I want to be acknowledged. I want to be loved. I want to be heard. I want to be valued. That's what it's always about. It is never about money. So this is really deep inner work that takes great courage and a great commitment to be present with all the parts of yourself that you'd rather shove under the rug. And I think being an entrepreneur is an incredible spiritual path, because it requires us to challenge our beliefs about how powerful we are. And we've been conditioned to believe incorrectly that having a lot of money makes you a powerful person. It doesn't. We've been led to believe that having a lot of money makes you be a jerk. It doesn't. If you're a jerk now and you make a lot of money, then you'll be a jerk who has a lot of money. If you are a powerful person now, which you are, if you know the truth of who you are, which this is the spiritual part, the breath of life that is animating you, it's not physical. The breath of life, call it God, goddess, prana, chi, life force, the great mystery, the beloved, the all that is. The breath that is animating you is creating the physical version of you. There is energy at the source of every atom, energy vibrating. And the energy vibrating creates the physical version of you. So when we begin to become aware that we are both physical and non-physical, we begin to tap the multidimensionality that we are. We begin to tap the true infinite nature of who we are. And that's when we are able to manifest with ease, when we attract with ease, when we create with ease and joy and delight, because we're no longer reacting to what has already been created down here. If you're just reacting to what is happening down here, all you can ever do is react to it. You're not in the driver's seat. You're just constantly like trying to get out of the way, or trying to deal with what's already here, but you're not at choice. You're reacting to what other people have already done. You're reacting to other people's decisions. And when you recognize that you are the creator of your reality, the entire picture changes. And so does your bank account. Does that help? Does that answer at least part of the question?
So good. Yes. Perfect. That's so much to dive into. And yeah, I think that definitely answered the question.
It's a long process. A lot of times people say, like, I just want a quick fix. It's not a quick fix. And the reason why it's not a quick fix, and the reason why you don't want it to be a quick fix, is because neuroscientists say we think subconscious thoughts 30 to 50,000 times a day, times 365 days a year, times how many years you've been on the planet. The more you think a thought, the more it becomes automatic. It's called automaticity in neuroscience. And when thoughts become automatic, we are not conscious of them. How many times have you driven somewhere and you had no idea how you got there? You walk in, you drop your keys, you're on to the next thing. And then 5 minutes later, where are my keys? Right? Because it's automatic. And when we run on automatic, when we're on autopilot, we're not present. So because our subconscious conditioning is happening 30 to 50,000 times a day, we're mostly not aware of what's happening. And so there's no way that you can have a shift in 30 minutes or an hour when you've spent the last 30, 40, 50 years of your life reiterating this same neural pathway, right? I mean, out of respect to you and your experiences and your growth, all of it has contributed to you to bring you exactly to this moment. So not one bit of it was extraneous.
Yeah, I think you're right about the not sitting in the driver's seat part. I think a lot of us aren't open to this idea and haven't been presented with this concept. And so are even just dodging the dodging the balls and dealing with what it is, and don't take the time to separate themselves and actually reflect and look back and join the dots and think about where they might actually want those dots to go.
And it's really scary. It's scary to be in the driver's seat, because if you're in the driver's seat, you're responsible. And so many people unwittingly have learned to not be responsible.
Yeah.
You know, one of the ways this shows up quite frequently is blaming other people. When we blame other people, we get to feel good about ourselves because it's not my fault. They did it, not me. Well, if they did it, then, who is responsible for the results? They are. Okay, so you're not responsible for your results. Okay, then who's going to decide what happens? Well, they're going to decide. Now you're really not responsible, right? I mean, it just is like this really squirrely rabbit hole of less and less and less responsibility until you realize that you don't have any control of anything, which is why you and I at least, love being entrepreneurs, because we can decide our own schedule. We can decide what hours we work. We can decide what we wear to work. We can have a Zoom background and nobody sees, what's behind it. There's no cap on our income. We can decide how much we want to make or how much, we're happy with. And we only work with clients we want to work with. Like, we have so much self-determination. We have so much self-governance, and that feels tremendously liberating. And when we're working in a job for another person, we might have the false sense of security because they're responsible for making sure we have a paycheck. But they're also responsible for hiring and firing you. They're also responsible for saying, no, you can't go on vacation right now. They're also responsible for saying, no, you can't bring your dog to work or whatever, And so it's really a question for you, those of you who are listening and curious about, how is this affecting my life? Ask yourself, what are the conditions that you really thrive in? And set those conditions up for yourself.
Yeah, I think I did really struggle with the being responsible part when I was the sole earner. Yeah, when I was the sole earner for the family, and I was like, it's all on me. Okay. No one else is making decisions. No one else is going to bring money in the door. No one else is responsible. Like, it's all, any decision I make is going to have repercussions, good or bad. And I have to own it. And there's no guarantee it's going to work out. And, all of that. So yeah, I can definitely relate to that piece.
Yeah, I was in the same boat. My husband and I had an agreement before I had this big awakening. I thought I needed to go to medical school. I thought I needed another degree. I needed real respect and a real income, real paycheck, and all this stuff. And off I trotted to medical school. And after a couple of years, and my husband was just like, no, you just keep going to school. You just keep learning. I'll support us. It's totally fine. When you're out, you're going to be making over six figures, and then you can support me. So the time came for me to take the baton, and he quit his job. He was like, okay, Deborah, now it's your turn. And I was like, okay. And the thing is, what's great about that, what's great for you and what's great for me, is that supply follows demand. So the more you demand of yourself, the faster you're going to rise. because you were taking care of your kids and your husband, there was no plan B. There was no, oh, if this doesn't work, I'll just da da da. Like you were 100% in and I was 100% in. And this is something I see with people who struggle is they're like kind of one foot in and one foot out. And if you're one foot in and one foot out, you will never fully commit. And if you never fully commit, you also cannot fully receive the tremendous abundance that is here for you when you say yes. Because you're sending a wishy-washy signal. You're like, well, maybe I will, maybe I won't. And if you're sending a wishy-washy signal, the universe doesn't know if you really mean it or not. And the universe is going to deliver to somebody who's like, yes, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, it can be scary.
Totally. It's totally scary. I went through a thing, not long ago where I was in an up leveling and I felt like I was going to barf. And I was so curious about this feeling because we have a second nervous system in our gut. And so our gut is the first place to respond usually when we're having a big up leveling because it has to do with receiving more, right? It has to do with our personal power. It has to do with being able to metabolize more life. And so I get just waves of emotion when I'm up leveling. And sometimes it's tears. You've witnessed me crying before. It's just like, I can't help it. It just floods out of me. And so I was in this up leveling and I just was feeling these waves of turbulence, like I was on a boat and it was rocking and I felt seasick. And I was so curious about this feeling. And I know that now I have this feeling when I'm up leveling. I literally feel sick. I literally feel like I'm going to throw up. And I am just really curious about the feeling because it happens as I'm up leveling. And usually the words are, who do you think you are? You can't have this much fun. You can't have this much ease. You can't be laughing so much. You you just can't love your work this much. You just can't have it be this easy. And when I say easy, it's not that I don't work a lot. I do. And I'm demanding. And I love it. I love growth. I love excellence. I love serving people at the highest levels of excellence. So it's fun.
Yeah. And it can be fun. And I like how you said that you're curious about it rather than kind of running and hiding and shutting it off and being like, I'm just going to go and have a glass of wine, or I'm going to, I don't know, whatever, numb it to actually feel into it and be curious about it so that you can learn and hear what your body's telling you.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I help my clients do. You said, how do I help my clients? And, it's one of the hardest things for people to be present with what is, because any emotion we're feeling has been stimulated by a subconscious thought that we've unconsciously retrieved. And it takes about 90 seconds for that energy to move through the body. But it's just a thought. You thought the thought. You're the thinker of the thought. You're the retriever of the thought. You're the one who keeps replaying the thought over and over like a broken record. So how come you're giving the thought that you created and that you put on the record player over and over again? How come you're letting the record control you? You're the one who put the record on. You can take the record off the record player. Right? Like we don't realize that we have choice in this. We don't realize our programming is playing. And just like you upgrade your computer, you can upgrade your mindset. The brain loves novelty. It loves learning new things. As soon as it relaxes around how scared it is of how powerful you are.
Yeah, that's good. Take the record off.
Or flip it.
It sounds so ridiculous. It sounds so ridiculous when you say it, doesn't it? It's like it's our.
But how often do we do this?
Yeah.
Right? Like something will get in our heads and we just keep like rehashing it over and over and over. And we really work ourselves into a sweat about it. And you could Like take a bath or read a book or have a snack or go for a walk, or, there's so many ways that you could watch yourself thinking the thought rather than identifying as the thought,
Yeah.
right? I make typos. I don't like that I make typos, but I do. I move quickly, I make mistakes. And I can watch myself making a mistake and I can cringe that I made a mistake, but it doesn't mean I'm a mistake. I made a mistake. I'm having the experience of somebody who made a mistake, but I'm not a mistake. I'm doing my best. Like my intention is pure. And when we can separate the feeling from who I identify as, there's so much spaciousness and so much freedom. And that's really what I help my clients with, is recognize that in a way we're all on stage. And the role you're playing, you decide what role are you playing. I used to play the role of a starving artist. I didn't like the starving part. I didn't like the broke part, but I like the artist. So I kept that. So now I'm, I don't really have a name for myself, but if I were to come up with one, it would be something like a successful hippie or something like that. Like I still love creating. I still love art, but I'm no longer operating from a place of scarcity. I'm just operating from a place of abundance and seeing opportunity, and what's the growth opportunity for me? What can I learn here? What else is possible? What's another perspective that I'm not seeing that I could see? So it's really just a different pair of lenses that I look through now.
Yeah, and quite a unique one in my experience, which I really appreciate. So how can people lean in, Deborah? How can people follow more of your work and get in touch with you?
So there are a couple of ways. I have a Facebook group right now. It's called the Anatomy of Money Academy. Just hop over there, Anatomy of Money Academy. You can find it on Facebook and it'll be in the show notes. And there are a couple of questions we ask at the door, and just answer those questions and we'll let you in. We love to share brain hacks and consciousness information to help you shift your perspective so that you can have more ease and fun with money. And the second thing is, there's a book I wrote called Turn on Your Tap, and that explains a mind-body practice that has been clinically proven to reduce stress. And it's very helpful to apply it to your money story. So Turn on Your Tap is a book that helps you tap into greater flow and ease around money and wealth and becoming a great receiver.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your wisdom. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Impact Business Show. 2 things you should know before you go. First, come and join the party. I'm live with free marketing training in the Social Marketing Method Facebook group every single week. That's where you can ask questions and get the answers you need to simplify your strategy and amplify your income. Go to annalisewarren.com/group to join and come and network with an incredible community of like-minded business owners. Now, second, if you have got any value from this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe, and share it out on your socials. Your support helps us reach more purpose-driven entrepreneurs and increase our impact in the world. Thank you, and I will see you next week. Bye.